Let's get going with your boxes. So what I wanted you to do is to open up your boxes and have them flat. So there is a section in your box that's glued. If you notice, they're all glued at one point.
Yeah.
So you can open that and make them as flat as possible. So you can open up, you don't have to do anything on this side because it hasn't got a glaze on it, or you don't have to worry. But if you grab your scissors, you can take out all these extra bits that you don't care for, right? All the extra odd bits. So if you could do that. And then your box is already folded. So when you do card making and things like that, you'll notice that there's a bump where the fold is. That's called the mountain, and the other side is called the valley. The other side of that fold. So you can decide which way you want to fold it, but either way, there'll just be pages in your book. And one of them can be your cover.
Do all the boxes have to be the same size?
No, absolutely not. And I'll show you that in a minute. You can insert anything, including tissue boxes. Those make lovely ones because they've got the little window where the tissues come out of. So
Oh, yeah.
A really nice little window. But
I've got a little window on mine here.
Right, so I've got little bits like this. These were the edges of the boxes, which are still very thick. So I'm just going to insert those in there. And I can also show you that if you didn't want to do the sewing and you don't have your needle and thread handy right now, you can still do something where you just tie all of this together. That way, every time you get some more boxes, you can just fold them and add them in. So like that. But of course, it's a bit loosey-goosey. But then if I have little pieces like this, I can just keep adding till it becomes nice and thick. And you can make a nice thick book like that. Just add it in. You can make it a rubber band or something. But that's already a book. But sewing is handy, of course, because it keeps everything really tight and taut.
Well, Zarina, do you fold it?
So you can fold it in half.
Oh yeah, okay, I see it.
Like I folded it in the middle, or you can fold it on that, on one of the already folded bits, and then you have a little bit sticking out, but that could be one of your, that's your own journal. So you can do what you like, really.
Yeah, I got it.
For example, for this one, it's not done yet, but I did the 3-stitch, which you can see a little bit here. There's 3 stitches, but I just used paper, blank paper. So computer paper. So then it becomes a really nice notebook as well. And then you can do whatever you want with the cover. And the way I did it, I can also then take this off, take the stitches out and use the cover for something else. Or, because what I would like to do is eventually then sew all these into one big book. You can also do that. So once you've done Nancy, keep an eye on the time for me, please. Once you've done that, what you want to do next is grab your sandpaper or your, what's this called? Steel wool, right? And you want to take some of that glaze off because you can't write or paint much. I mean, you can't do, nothing sticks on so well because it's too glossy. So it's good to take the glaze off a bit. You can be, depending on what you're thinking, maybe you want to just glue a piece of paper of something else, of a magazine or on it, but either way you can use this and take some of that off. And there'll be some dust flying off, so just watch out. I don't really know what's in those colors. The idea is that you have everything in the house, right? You don't have to go and get a fancy notebook. You can just start your journal using everything recycled. And Christmas is coming, so lots of presents are coming too, maybe. You'll get more boxes. So yeah, as much as possible. And of course, you can also do that later. You don't have to do it now. You can give it finishing touches later. So I'm showing you the simplest way of doing this. I'm going to fold it in half. How many have you got? How many boxes have you got?
2 boxes.
Yeah.
I've
You
got
could start
3.
with 2, or you can add some more pages inside. But I forgot to say, if you have a thumbtack, that's really handy here. Or you can have something, because you usually need an awl. I have a bone folder. I actually have a real bone. Sorry if it's grossing out anybody. But that's a bone folder to make things flat. I usually have a couple of pegs too to do this, just to keep things in place, but you don't have to. Martin? And some string. I'm just using a thick wool, but you could use wax thread. And of course the needle is, I've just got this really strong needle, but you can use any strong needle, but usually for bookbinding, you get special needles so that you can really push through the papers and cardboards. So
Yeah, or a leather needle.
a leather needle would work really well too. Yes, you're right. But
How about one of those awls, you know,
oh, you
one-
have one of those? You have one of those, Jill?
oh, I've got all kinds of stuff I could use.
Pity you're not around.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How many holes do you make in the?
Yeah, so here's another trick, just to show you for another time when you're sitting down and, with a lot more time. If I were you, I would, so the outside, the biggest part, biggest part of your book, you can make a little measurement for it. And hang on a minute. You can use that as a ruler and then make marks, mark it. We'll do 4 holes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I kind of just eyeball it, but when you want to give a gift of a book or something, you might want to make the marks properly on all the pages. So then you know exactly where to go. So I'm going to do this one. Did Saskia, and who's joining?
I'm joining.
Did you want to do the simple binding, or did you want to do the Japanese noble binding, which means that you'd have to go further in? You know, the one I showed you before?
Yeah.
Did you want to do that stitch, or?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter? Okay, then let's do the simpler one. So I'm putting all of it together. And I'm using that same measuring kind of thing inside, making sure it all lines up, and you're making like 4 holes. So if you've got an awl, or don't ruin your table, I'm using a cutting board. I have to say, having just one arm to work with is, yeah, it's not a joke.
Yeah, Sarina,
Yeah.
are you putting that into just like one fold of the
Yes.
book, right?
It's all
Fold.
I'm using 1, 2, 3. I'm using 3.
So all on the center fold when you
They're
make
all in the center. Yes.
Yep. And those papers you're putting in, are they cardboard?
They are the recycled shreddies and cereal boxes. They're all the same.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, so are you going to make one book out of all those 3?
I'm
Or are
gonna
you going to
one
make
book.
3? Huh?
No, I'm going to make one book because I tend to put lots of heavy things in my books. You could just use that as the outside cover and put some very thin sheets of paper in, just computer paper. That might be handier for your first book if you haven't done this before, just for your hands so they're not pushing and shoving.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just wondering why you're using cardboard for like 3 pages, because you can put more things on it. Is that what you mean?
I can do whatever, but the idea here is that I want to use recycled. I just want to use my recycling. I don't usually have thin white paper that I've thrown in the bin. But
Oh, okay. Mhm.
so
Yeah.
this is to show you that you can make it
Okay.
any way you want. But since I had
Sure.
this in my recycle bin, it's just nice to use it rather than throw it out.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks.
You can make 3 books if you want to, Julie. It's really up to
What-
It's up to
Sorry?
you. It's up to you what you want to do. It's just using recycled materials. So you could, if you had 3 or 4 of these pieces, make separate books and then use recycled paper to fill in the pages. So it's really
Yeah, yeah.
dependent on what you want to put in your
Okay.
book as well.
Yeah, I just want to put in paper that I've ripped out of different things. So
Yeah.
they're kind of like recycling paper.
So you
They're
can,
not cardboard.
yeah, so you don't have to use all the pages as cardboard, right?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a bit harder too.
Great. Great thing.
So your rope usually has to be 3 to 4 times longer than the length of your book. So, I just made it long now, just so I don't run out, just in case. But usually it's 3 to 4 times is the rule. So who's ready at the stitching point? Are we ready? I'm just going to show you.
Saskia is not at her desk right now.
Oh, she's probably gone to get a needle and thread.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe wait a bit. And just to give you a heads up, we are at 4:58 right now.
What time do we end normally?
5:30, is that right, Kate?
Plenty of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I
we have,
still have to do a
we have
reading,
time.
so,
And Saskia's back.
good. So,
That was my string.
oh, good. So if
And
you were doing the 3 or 4 stitch in the middle like this, if you start on the inside, you're going to end on the inside. If you start on the outside, you can end on the outside. It's basically the bow. So there are very strict rules if you want to follow them, but basically you can do what you like. And you can even not have a bow. You can start somewhere in there to hide the thread, right? And just have a very neat stitch like that.
Barb's just
This side.
showing her book right now.
Oh, Barb, let me see.
Oh, Barb, you're on mute.
Yep, this is one that I made, and it does have the ribbon, so it's a
Can you
blank,
put it
blank book, and it has a little
in pocket?
pocket, so, yeah.
Oh, and you have the bow on the outside. Very good. See?
Homemade book, yeah,
Yeah. Aren't they lovely though? Because you can make it, right?
I think so, and then there's sort of a stretchy to keep it nice, yeah.
But do you have to have 4? Can you do it with 3 holes?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, I thought I asked and nobody responded, so I just suggested 4, but it doesn't matter. You can do exactly what I'm doing. So you're going to start maybe the second hole.
Mhm.
For you, you can start in the middle. Oops, that was my pet dog. Oh dear. And you're going to pull it out. And I usually leave a little tail.
Yeah.
And then from the outside, I go in.
Top.
So either way, you want to cover all the gaps. So I can go in again.
Wasn't there a fellow who did book binding at Carrisdale as a project?
Oh, wow, that would have been amazing. Yeah, it's something I really love. I'd
That
love.
was Marcus. Yeah.
Marcus. Mm.
I'm using really thick stuff. Basically, I just use what I have, but the right way would be to use this waxy thread that's really nice and simple. So I've only got 1 gap here on this side, and I've got 1 gap here on this side. So I'm going to go back in. Oops,
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Can you see? And then what I'll do with this bit is I'll tie it as close as possible to there.
Yeah. So you need 4 holes really.
No, you don't. You can
Oh.
absolutely go with 3 holes too, and
Okay.
it does match up. As long as you start on one side, go up, you know, just keep going into a hole that doesn't have one of these. And that's it. That's the simplest version. If we wanted to do another version, we can do it next time, but there you go. That's done.
Mm.
Now, you know, if I had a spare piece of paper like Bob did, you put a little pocket there, insert stuff. I'll go in and probably do some more sandpapering. But what I would do now is I would just use acrylic paint and cover that, because I don't necessarily want to stick something on it. But I basically just, oh, what kind of brush is that? It's weird, somebody used it. And while you're doing that, I'd like to read something from, if anybody had a chance, has anybody had a chance to read Keiko's article she wrote back, I think in September, right, Keiko?
Probably yes.
Place attachment. And Deborah Sparrow and Maya in that in the photos
Yes.
with Keiko. Yeah, that reminds me a lot about the author Robin Wall Kimmerer, who writes Braiding Sweetgrass. So this is a bit awkward how I've done it, but I just wanted to show you anyway. I'll let that dry. I'll give it another coat and let that dry so it gets, you know, it looks better. But then basically it's acrylic, then I can write on it and do whatever. It works out really nicely, or just stick pictures on it and things like that. So I wanted to talk about this book that I'm reading, and I just wanted to read a little bit out of it. Braiding Sweetgrass. While you're working on your stitching and your sanding, if you can. This book, I don't know if you know about it. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass. I was telling Keiko and Nancy about it earlier. Robin Wall Kimmerer, she is a scientist, also indigenous, and she writes this beautiful book about nature and weaving and using all the materials around you. But what she writes about cattail, it reminded me of what about us, about us just being familiar with something around us and how it can adapt to us, and we can adapt to it and we can look after it. So while I'm reading, if you could just visualize your feet or your roots growing and breathing negative energy through your feet into the ground, where the earth can also transform it into positive energy. So, oh, thank you, Nancy, for putting that down. That's great. So I'll read one sentence from this page and then I'll move on to the bit I want to read. The cattail plant, Typha latifolia, is like a giant grass. No distinct stem, but rather a rolled bundle of leaves that sheath around each other in concentric layers. No one leaf could withstand wind and wave action, but the collective is strong and the extensive underwater network of rhizomes anchors them in place. I really love that. I think it just reminds us of us, like when we can't all stand by ourselves, we really need our community to keep us together. And it just sounds so beautiful. So this is the part. Cattails have evolved other features that are perfectly adapted for lives spent standing in the marsh. The bases of the leaves are underwater, but they still need oxygen for respiration. So, like scuba divers with air tanks, they equip themselves with spongy, air-filled tissue, nature's bubble wrap. These white cells, called irenchyma, I think, if I'm pronouncing it right, irenchyma, are big enough to be seen with the naked eye and make a buoyant, cushiony layer at the base of each leaf. The leaves are also coated with a waxy layer, a waterproof barrier like a raincoat. But this raincoat works in reverse, keeping water-soluble nutrients inside so that they don't leach away into the water. This is all good for the plant, of course, and it's good for people. The cattails have made a superb material for shelters and leaves that are long, repellent and packed with closed cell foam for insulation. In the old times, fine mats of cattail leaves were sewn or twined to sheath a summer wigwam. In dry weather, the leaves shrink apart from one another and let the breeze waft between them for ventilation. When the rain comes, they swell and close the gap, making the mat waterproof. Cattails also make fine sleeping mats. The wax keeps away moisture from the ground, and the iron chimer provides cushioning and insulation. A couple of cattail mats, soft, dry, and smelling like fresh hay under your sleeping bag make for a cozy night. Squeezing the soft leaves between her fingers, Natalie says, it's almost as if the plants made these things for us. The parallels between the adaptations evolved by the plants and the needs of the people are indeed striking. In some native languages, the term for plants translates to those who take care of us. Through natural selections, the cattails developed sophisticated adaptations that increased their survival in the marsh. The people were attentive students and borrowed solutions from the plants, which increased their likelihood of survival. The plants adapt, the peoples adopt. That's where I'll end it. But it's so beautiful, I think, because, you know, the cattail is just a way of saying, but there's so many other things we can replace cattail with, right? So does anybody have anything to ask about the journals and how to do them? How to make them?
Yeah, how much do you have to,
Julie?
how much do you have to use to get the surface off?
You don't have to do much. You just have to you can see the gloss going when you've done it.
Yes.
And that's all you need. I mean, you can go crazy, but then you'll rip the whole paper off. You
No,
just
we don't
you
do
need
that.
it much, and to give it a bit of a grain so things stick on it. Even
Yes.
glue or paint can stick on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question.
Julie, yeah?
So I think I had to run upstairs to get the laundry.
Mhm.
But anyway, I started on the outside,
Oh, good.
entered with my needle, right?
Sure.
To the inside.
And then you move up one.
Yeah, I went up one.
Go back
And
up.
then I went over the whole of the back.
Perfect. But don't go over the whole hole, just to the next hole, even if you have to repeat and go back to the middle.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said,
Anyway, I went the whole length and then I came back and I went back into the middle.
as long as you fill up all the gaps.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah. And then I just tied a knot in the back.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Any thoughts on braiding sweetgrass and the little bit I read? If you can apply it to anything that's going on in your lives right now and you want to share, please feel free.
It sounds like an interesting book.
It's a very
Yeah.
interesting book.
Kimmerer.
Actually, very
With the cardboard, if you don't want to sand everything, I suggest you glue something over the ugly parts that you don't want to keep.
Absolutely.
Then you don't have to, because my acrylics don't cover it exactly, because they're too transparent.
And you
Yes.
can, yeah, that's one way of covering it. So certainly you can glue things down or collage things down. You know, that's just one method.
Yes.
Can you put the name of the book
Collage.
up?
I mean,
What-
I didn't bother sandpapering there. I just covered it up with my picture.
love that
Runs all
page.
over it. So, oh yeah, that's the bulrush, the cattail at the
Yeah.
end when the seeds come.
Oh,
And
that's,
What they use for insulation too. Just so to stop the flies. But yes, you can just cover it. You don't have to use glue or acrylic. I rarely use it. I just wanted to show you that it's there and you can.
Yeah.
Could I
So
just,
Nancy, can you put the name of that book up again, please?
Oh, sure. I will type it up again.
She talks a lot about place,
There you go.
What's
She
it-
has it up there.
I
What's it
also,
called?
braiding,
Sweetgrass.
braiding sweetgrass. Yeah.
Braiding Street.
Yes.
Braiding.
And it's really, it's a fantastic book for now. And in fact, this whole pandemic time, you know, I guess I am in the weaving circles and the fibers like you, but I've noticed that everybody's quoting her because she talks a lot about nature and going out there and really honing into the place and really taking everything you can from it, but giving back as much as you can as well. And, you know, harvesting ethically and harvesting really thinking about everybody and sharing the animals with the animals as well and the birds, not just people, you know. And she talks about the plants being teachers to us, and that it's actually the other way around too. You can also be teachers to the plants. So it's a really nice reciprocal system, and everybody now is talking about going into nature to really heal and feel better about yourself and think a little bit of the
Yeah.
big picture. This is also something you can do with materials, right?
Oh, wow.
There was a piece of Dawn's dress in there. Who
Oh,
remember,
yes,
remember that?
Oh, wow.
yes.
Wow.
I recognize that.
Yeah, so this is just a piece of some fabrics that I like that I kept, but there's no way to put it. I wanted my first dye on my own, rhubarb dye, but I put pockets here too. So this is more like a slow journal, you know, bits and bobs of things. And
Oh,
this is
wow.
a slow stitching thing where but I kept a pocket with some needle and thread in there too.
Oh my goodness.
So I can just sew as I go. I haven't done much, but this pocket of a pair of pants I used to love. So, and just random cloths that you pick up from bins of places, and you know, like craft bins, and you don't really know what to do, but now they can just be
Oh, that's,
things.
I like that.
I love
Wow.
that.
I really like that, Zarina. I
Oh,
want to
wow.
do that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can. And it's just the whole point is not to use the machine. So, you
Yeah.
know,
I want
And
to-
so,
use your hands and your own needle and thread, and you can carry it in your bag.
Mm.
Small enough, you can fold it, roll it up. It's fine. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I didn't want to forget. So
Wow.
Beautiful.